Hey listeners, Dan Harris here, host of the 10% Happier podcast. Imagine all your audio entertainment available in just one place. That's what the Audible app is all about. With Audible, you can always find the best of what you love or discover something new. Audible has an incredible selection of wellness titles and originals like The Light Podcast by Michelle Obama, Work It Out by Mel Robbins, and Confidence Gap by Russ Harris. Membership includes access to Audible Originals, podcasts, and tons of audiobooks that you can download or stream as much as you want. And as an Audible member, you can choose one title per month from an ever-growing catalog of titles to keep. The Audible app makes it easy to listen anytime, anywhere, whether you're traveling, working out, doing chores, wherever your day takes you. New members can try Audible now free for 30 days. Visit audible.com/Harris or text Harris to 500-500.
The weather is cooling down a bit. The leaves are starting to fall. Yes, it's that time of year again, football season. And we all know the best part of any game day traditions are the ones that involve food. There's nothing like having everyone in your game day crew coming together to bring their best bites and argue over whose family makes the best chili. And while there's no need to mess with the perfection of game day classics, like a freshly grilled Oscar Mayer hot dog topped with Heinz ketchup and mustard, it's always fun to step out of your comfort zone and get creative with your recipes. Because there's nothing more fun than adding to your list of game day traditions, like making a creamy and delectable queso dip with Velveeta cheese that can be eaten with so much more than just chips. Now is the chance for people across the nation to find out whose game day eats reign supreme. It's your turn to show off your tasty game day food traditions. Go to www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to share a photo of your game day food tradition to enter to win $10,000. Once again, that's www.gamedayfoodtraditions.com to enter to win $10,000.
This is Full Change with Tom Laidlaw.
Recordo. It's like you're doing a bad impression of Ricky Ricard or something. I don't even know what it is. All right, we're not gonna edit that out. We're just gonna start with you doing these bad accents to start the show.
Cartoons. Did you watch
I
cartoons?
love cartoons. I worked in Nickelodeon for years.
Keep your eye on the ball. Eyeball. Who was that?
It sounds like Yosemite Sam, I think, but I can't tell your accent.
Wasn't it? It was the turkey or whatever. The chicken.
Foghorn Leghorn?
Yeah, Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah, that's from Bugs Bunny. Yeah, I really loved the Woody Woodpecker. He was like the biggest ball buster in the world, you know.
How about the who's Speedy Gonzales? Was it Speedy Gonzales?
Sure.
Yeah. But what's with the raccoon that was really fast? Was it Fox or wasn't there Speedy?
Speedy Gonzales was a little mouse. There was the Roadrunner.
That's
and apparently Roadrunners aren't really that fast.
Hey, you go back and watch some of those cartoons back then. They're a little bit like there's
Racist? Flat out racist?
Yeah, but it also a little bit of sexual content.
Absolutely. And they got away with a lot of that. And Bugs Bunny had some episodes they pulled that are just flat out racist, like reflecting the times towards the Japanese in World War II, and there's some towards black folks that are just really bad.
But isn't those were like kids' cartoons back then? Look at where we're at now, where can't say anything.
No, but there's one thing about doing jokes, but there's another thing about just being outright racist, you know. But like a great cartoon that I loved, and my kids still watch this day, is Tom and Jerry. Timeless. Okay. And maybe because wasn't much dialogue.
Right.
But
how about the Flintstones?
Flintstones are great. Yeah. Flintstones are absolutely great.
It was not a cartoon, but the Beverly Hillbillies is good too.
It was, but you're going off the track now because we're talking about cartoons. But that's fine. We talk about TV shows. You got these cartoons in Canada growing up?
Oh yeah.
Because I think you didn't have a shower. You had a TV?
Yeah, we had TV, 2 channels on it. Yeah,
2 channels.
Yeah, CBC and can't remember the other channel. Yeah, black and white. I remember first got the color TV. First got the clicker.
You're right.
That was,
wait, you didn't get the American channels?
Not where we were. No, just we just had to use the up on the roof, the antenna on the roof.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you got the CBC, and so that's why all you guys watch Hockey Night in Canada. There's nothing else on.
Yeah. Do you know why sex from behind is a big thing?
Okay, this is definitely getting cut out. Why?
So both people can watch Hockey Night in Canada.
Okay, maybe we'll keep that one in. Yeah, not bad. Not bad.
We kept it fairly
fine. No, that's these jokes. We're talking about cartoons, and you go right to that. But that's fine.
Yep, every Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, it was just everybody. That was just got that.
Really gather around. Like mom watched that too.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah, it was a thing. It was just part of what the family did.
And it wasn't always Canadian teams, right? It was only 6 teams at that time. So you'd see the Rangers.
Typically, though, for us, it would be the Toronto, whoever Toronto was playing. Not obviously playoff time is different, but typically that's
So they would schedule the Leafs and Canadians, I guess, to play at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night.
yeah. And then again, sometimes they're on the road, the Leafs, but it's typically the Leafs for us. People obviously the Montreal, and that's funny. Like even like a guy like Larry Melnick, depending where you were in the country, you would get to watch either Montreal games, like the other parts, like the West. You get to watch Montreal games or Toronto games. Therefore, you became a Montreal fan.
So how do you become a Ranger fan? You just don't.
Yeah, you did. But I mean, obviously you watch the Rangers play. So if you like that team, and people ask me so many times, I just really wasn't a Toronto fan. I don't know why. It wasn't like I hated the Toronto. Yeah,
It's so weird because everyone talks about how the Canadians won all those cups and the Maple Leafs won a bunch up until 67, but the system was so rigged.
Yeah,
because like Canadians were taking all the players from Quebec, right? Toronto had most of Ontario. I know the Bruins had like a small slice of Southern Ontario, right? I don't even know where the Rangers pulled from the areas. Like,
I think it's Western Canada someplace. So they're back in like the system now. Obviously, there's a draft for everybody out there. So it doesn't matter where you're from. You can pick a player from anywhere in the world. But back then, they had little territories where those players fly. They came in and I think they paid $5,000 to the family to get them to sign the card. It's
so crazy though. Like, so the Rangers were stuck without a draft. They were just like every great French player, and there were a lot of them, just went to the Canadians.
Yeah, that's true.
And the Rangers did have an opportunity to sign a 16-year-old Gordie Howe, and they didn't. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they did sign his brother, right, but they didn't get. They missed out on obviously Gordie, Mr. Hockey. So that was a rough one.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. The difference in the system there, where it's always possible,
totally rigged.
Yeah, like a team like Chicago, where they're getting their players from. Yeah, but then they got Bobby Hull and Stan Mikita, so maybe they made trades.
Well, they definitely made trades, but like Bobby. So the Bruins had Niagara Falls; they had that whole region. That's why they got Derek Sampson, Bobby Orr, even Barry Toronto.
What's Bobby Orr's hometown?
Is he Flint? No, Parry Sound. And I knew that because I wrote a book report about Bobby Orr, and I think Bobby Orr. Sorry about it. In like third grade.
What did you call him?
I'm Orr. It's that Bobby Orr. So you got me. You made that joke, and I'm thrown. And I did a book report about Bobby Orr in third grade. I think I did. Bobby Clark was from Flin Flon. Yes, that was fourth grade book report, and I know sixth grade was the whole league. I'll have to bring that up one day. We'll go over that because that was when you were playing. It's probably like '83 or so.
Oh, okay.
Wow. We'll bring that one in. I'll show you. I got an A on it, so I'm very proud of it. Book report.
Man, I was a terrible student. Yeah, I was actually fairly smart when I was a kid. It just everything became hockey. No, I said fairly smart.
Okay, everything's relative.
Yeah, because you see, I actually when I was on Survivor, they did all the psychological testing, and when they got back here, they wanted me to do more because they found out all the concussions now. Maybe they feel like I was an idiot when I was up in LA. And so they had this guy test me. I'm doing all those psychological tests and like that. He calls me back up. He says, "Man, you're a smart guy." I go, I start laughing. He says, "No, you are. The way you tested, you're a smart guy."
Do you think they say that to everybody though?
Well, he didn't have to need to. I mean, yeah, he was separate from Survivor. He was just a local doctor doing this. So check him on. Yeah.
So no effects. Your brain still worked, sort of.
I remember I couldn't wait to go tell my sons. Doctor told me I was intelligent.
The part of your brain that does accents is definitely damaged, as we learned it in the last few episodes.
I just haven't used it lately, so it's just gotta get warmed up.
That wasn't bad. It was almost Scottish. They said you used it or used it.
You know, I can do a Canadian. That's pretty good, eh?
You do a Canadian one pretty good. Yeah. And I think my kids probably do the only Tom Laidlaw impression of anyone on the planet.
We gotta get them on.
I will definitely get them on to do it. Molly,
listen to your daughter Molly does the best.
She does. Yeah, she does all the time. Fantastic show.
You know,
now you haven't heard the show because you don't listen, only the one that you're on. But at the end of every show, you say, "All right, Grasshoppers, we had a fantastic show."
Stop doing it as much now, though, because I think you brought it up. I'm more aware
or conscious. Yeah, we just run that clip at the end of every episode. We definitely will. Folks, listen, we tape these shows. We kind of tape them consecutively, and then we do our stuff, Tom and I, and there are a lot of bloopers. Not so many bloopers in the interview. And I will say you're a good interview. You do a very good job with the guests.
Thank you.
You get help sometimes from me when I chime in, but we there's a lot of bloopers in this section, the beginnings of the show. At the end, lots of bloopers,
total goofballs,
which is fine. But I did like cartoons. To answer your earlier question, I loved cartoons. Saturday mornings was the greatest thing in the world. And you had to wait till the fall to see what the new cartoons would be. I always loved the Super Friends when they were on. I liked Scooby Doo; those were great too.
Superman, we watched Superman too.
The show?
Well, there's a Superman show, but there's also the cartoon.
I was more of like the Justice League than the Super Friends, like that era.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you're a little older. Maybe you had like a cartoon. I know you had. I would see was it George Reeves? Was he the Superman on? Yes, he was. So we would watch those reruns, and it was so badly done, but I loved it.
Yeah, totally. You get the slick back hair and everything like that.
It's kind of a little bit chubby. Another one, my all-time favorite was Adam West Batman. I love Batman, and that was the greatest show. I'm going to tell a quick story. So one time I was in Atlanta with the girl I was dating in college, and I saw a sign at Target. It said, appearing Friday night, Yvonne Craig, TV's Batgirl. So I said, we have to go. And I said, we have to get there early. So we go.
With your girlfriend?
Yes. So we're in, we go into Target. I'm looking for the crowds, right? With Batgirl. Right? This is probably in 1996. So I'm like, where are the crowds? I go back. There's this little table in women's pants. And it's Yvonne Craig sitting there by herself. There's 3 people on mine. 1 person in a wheelchair, 2 other people.
Oh.
And I'm like, this poor lady. So I was very starstruck. So I got the autograph, left. So the girlfriend I had at the time, she was like, please stay and talk to me. So it was so bad that nobody was recognizing this genius who was passed, unfortunately. But I love that show. I was a big fan. But then to take that full circle, did you do any appearances where like nobody was there or nobody came?
Oh, I'm sure I've had. I was with a group of people from here in Greenwich, Connecticut, and they wanted to put on kind of a sports show. It was going to be up in Boston. We are going to get the Boston Bruins to come in, and we just looking back, it didn't do a very good job promoting it at all.
Right.
So we got probably 10 or 15 former Boston Bruins, that big name guys, and nobody showed up.
No one showed.
Well, I should say nobody. There were some people there.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah, I was kind of the conduit between, so the Boston guys looking at me and like,
so you would, because you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Who are some of the guys?
Oh, Johnny Busick was there.
Wow, legend, Hall of Famer.
It's a big name guy.
500 goals in it.
Yeah.
Who else?
So, I can't remember. That was a long time ago. We get old posters we had made up and everything, and it's like so embarrassing. Now, they said they were going to pay these guys, so they still went ahead and paid it. So they were happy they got paid. But
as far as you were the organizer?
Well, no, this other group here in Greenwich is more the organizer. Okay, so it was the connection.
You knew the guys, right? So you got all these guys to come down from Boston.
Well, no, we actually did it in Boston. That was a good thing. Oh, they didn't have to travel. But it made it worse, though, because in Boston, and nobody showed up hardly.
Because no one knew about it.
Yeah, like we did a terrible job.
So they're all of you like, Tommy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And I could have played golf today.
I'm trying to think about, there's got to be a time where nobody showed up for my stuff. There's got to be. But usually when we do things, it's with a whole group of guys. So
sure.
Everybody's coming to see it.
Well, what about like some of the clinics you guys? Well, there's always this built-in kids there because they're there.
Always kids. But the kids are funny, because we talked about this before. They really don't know whether I'm Mark Messier or Tom Laidlaw.
Right.
In fact, I do get sometimes people, the running joke is it's Brian Mullen, myself, and Adam Graves all get confused all the time. And you kind of get to know the person will come up to you, and I can tell they're way too excited. Like
but they don't know what for.
Yeah, we told we had that thing where we got on the ice painting after the season. That we're on with ice hockey in Harlem actually. And this young guy and his girlfriend came up to me, and he's all excited. He's getting a bunch of pictures taken, and I could tell he thinks I'm somebody else.
Yeah.
So he goes to the girlfriend. He says, "Sweetie, can you get a picture of Mark and I together?" He thought I was Mark Messier.
Oh, nice.
So now this is the awkward.
How'd you sign it though? Signed Mark Messier?
Well, there was no signing it. I was just getting pictures.
Okay, gotcha.
So now this is the awkward part because now I have to tell him about Mark Messier.
Right.
And I know what's going to happen. I'm fine. It happens all the time, but it's more they're going to be embarrassed.
He's going to feel mortified.
Right. So I said, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm not Mark Messier." I thought like that, and they're devastated. I said, and I know in advance. I said, "Don't worry, it's fine. It's okay." But still, they're like red faced the whole bit because you can tell. You really after a while you get to tell because they're way too excited. If it's me or Brian Mullen, someone on the same level, so they're excited to meet us or whatever. But if they think it's Mark Messier or Adam Graves, they're way too excited, and you can just tell. You can say. You'll stop sometimes to get, who do you think I am? And then they're kind of like a bit of a panic. Well, you're Adam Graves, aren't you? Oh, yeah. Sorry, but I'm not. I'm Tom Laidlaw.
They quickly scroll on their phone and look you up.
Yeah, that happens. Yes.
Oh, that's you. Okay, that's you.
There's been times too where we'll go to an event that they know that Adam Graves is going to be there. For some reason, it's more Adam Graves with me. I'll get there early, and the dad will be, I can see off in the distance. He's got his son or daughter there, the family, and he's pointing. That's Adam Graves. So all of a sudden, Adam Graves will show up, and then they'll look over at me again. They go, it's just Laidlaw, like they're disgusted that it's not.
It's just the feds. Well, all white people look the same, so there's that part of it.
That's true. The big bald heads.
Obviously, I wasn't outrageous, so I wasn't famous, but I had 2 incidents like that were kind of funny. So once I was at a diner about 1999 with my friend Steve Burns, who people listening know as the Blues Clues host. Very, very popular, especially at that time, especially with families. So we're at the diner, and this woman is banging on the window with a kid, banging and pointing. And I'm like, oh, great, another one's going to see Steve. I've seen people will be out somewhere, and he'll be urinating, and someone will come up next to him, can I get an autograph? So I'm like, here comes another one. The lady comes in, and she's like, oh, my God, you're Steve. And she points at me, and she goes, I thought he was one of the Backstreet Boys. Like, had the frosted tips. Like, oh, they're right. So that was one. And then the second time, this guy got me at a diner in the city. I was coming out. He's like, I know you. You're that actor. like, I'm not. He's like, no, I know you. I know. I see you in the show. You're awesome. Like, it's not me. It's like, it's you. You're lying. You're playing it cool. I know you're that actor. And he's like, I love your work. And I just went, thank you. That's what we're doing. So
who do I get? I get Terry Bradshaw once in a while.
oh yeah, I can see that. I could totally see that.
Sometimes The Rock. I was in
The White Rock, definitely the pink rock.
the Pink Rock. Yes. Yep. We're in Fiji, leaving Fiji after Survivor.
So you're nice and tan then, probably too,
Yep,
right?
yeah. And this woman, a cashier working in the restaurant, totally thought I was The Rock, and I couldn't do anything to say that I wasn't. She goes, "You're The Rock." Heck, she was in love with The Rock.
Like, should you do the eyebrow or the people's eyebrow?
I should do that too. The people's eyebrow. Yeah.
If you smell what Laidlaw's cooking.
Can you smell what The Rock is cooking?
No, he's not. That's Popeye. That's not The Rock.
No, that was totally The Rock. People probably that aren't watching the show are probably saying, "They got The Rock on." Can you smell what The Rock is cooking? That's how he did it.
If you smell.
No. Can't you smell what The Rock is cooking?
Listen,
That's it. To a T. Seriously. People get you thinking that we had The Rock on the show.
do you think that you're actually The Rock? It doesn't matter what you think.
Can you smell what Kenny Albert is cooking?
Cooking up a book and a great career is what he's cooking up. People are going to love this episode.
You know what people are going to think? Seriously, that was The Rock. That right? They're going to think we had The Rock on the show.
I don't think so. Dwayne Johnson from Bethlehem, PA, if you're listening.
Can you smell what Kenny Albert is cooking?
Bring some vodka and bring some of that vodka. Wow, you look like Popeye. I got to get the video of this. So Tom is doing Kenny Albert, and there you go. Eat your spinach. Were you a Popeye fan?
Yes, I was a Popeye.
Popeye's a great cartoon.
Strong to the finish, guys. I ate my spinach. Popeye the Sailor Man.
Not bad. And you squint that eye, you start to look like him a little bit. Get a pipe, and you could be Popeye. You got the forearms.
His one's big as that.
Oh, come on. Look, this guy is so in love with himself. Self-love, everybody. Enjoy Kenny Albert.
Have a wonderful day.
Good morning, Tom.
Morning talk.
How are you?
Excellent. Good to see you.
With a special show today because we have on a legendary voice, but also more importantly, we have an NYU alum like myself. We have a guy who covers everything. We have the great Kenny Albert.
Mr. Albert, how are you doing there, sir?
Great to be here with you guys. And this little known fact you're probably not aware of, but I didn't score many goals during my club hockey career in college, but I did score the first goal in NYU club hockey history back in 1986.
Like I said, legend.
Nice.
I had to throw that out there. Didn't score many others after that.
Did you play the entire time of your college?
I did. So I played growing up and played in high school out on Long Island. And I thought my hockey career was over at that point, aside from adult hockey games or pickup games at Sky Rink in Manhattan. My freshman year, December of 86, was our first game. But in September that year, I'm walking through one of the buildings to class, and I see a flyer on the wall that another student by the name of Matt Nafis was thinking about starting a club hockey team. So I went to the first meeting and signed up, and it was great. So for 4 years, we played a lot of games at Sky Rink, and Bayonne, New Jersey became our home rink at one point, I think in year 2 or 3, and we would travel by van all around the New York metropolitan area. It was a lot of fun. Great guys, and still keep in touch with some of them. In fact, Tom, you know Todd Levy, who founded the Ice Hockey in Harlem program.
Sure.
He was one of my teammates. That's where we first met. We played hockey together at NYU.
My buddy Adam Davis, who we've spoken to, helps us with the podcast. He also was on that team as well. So
And
I
they've
just read
a
that.
long way. They've moved up a couple of notches since then, and they won a national championship at their level about 10 or 12 years ago. So it was fun to be a part of the process right at the start.
And the fact that you remember Matt Nufus, is it Matt Nufus?
Matt Nafis. Yep.
It's like, how do you remember? I can't remember people I met last week and you met this guy. It's good.
He went into the military, and his wife is actually she was a reporter for the Bergen Record for many, many years. So I followed her work on social media, but it was all thanks to Matt. He was the one that came up with the idea and then actually coached us for a couple of years as well.
So just so people don't know, if you've never met Kenny Albert before, we just did a show with Sam Rosen. I put you and Sam in the same category. Both total professionals, fantastic at your careers. But the most important thing about you guys is you're the nicest people on the planet, too. Like, if you meet you and Sam, it's almost like, I don't know, I expect you to be
like you.
Yeah. And Kenny is not. So people that haven't met Kenny before, I would get you, like, waste your time. But if you want to go up and say hello to Kenny sometime at the Garden, see him someplace, very approachable, real normal human being, which is
it's very nice these days.
part, but I appreciate the other kind of work.
Kenny, one more NYU question. Do you have the puck from the first goal? Did they give it to you?
I don't have the puck. I have some of the old jerseys and photos, and I keep just about everything, but I don't think I have that puck. It was just a regular black puck. It didn't have any fancy logo on it. So even if I have it, I'm not sure which puck it would be.
So where'd you grow up then? Long Island?
Grew up on Long Island, so lived in Manhattan my first 4.5 years, born in 1968. We moved to Woodmere, Long Island when I was 2.5, went to kindergarten there. And then we moved to the North Shore, Sands Point, Port Washington. So that's where I spent all of my years in school through high school, Schreiber High School in Port Washington. Great train line. The LARR went right to the Garden, stopped at Shea Stadium. So it was easy to get to sporting events. NYU, and then my first 5 years professionally were down in Maryland and the DC area. So for 5 years, I lived away from the New York area. First job, American Hockey League, called the Baltimore Skipjacks on radio. That's right. They were the Washington Capitals affiliate. Unbelievable experience. My road roommate for 2 years was our assistant coach at the time, Barry Trout, who's gone on to do great things in the NHL. But we actually roomed together to save money. They had the radio guy and the assistant coach.
Wow. Did you know that?
Well, we did a show with Kenny before, and he mentioned this stuff too. Yeah, that's cool.
Washington Capitals games for 3 years, and then moved back to New York and started with MSG Network and the Rangers on the radio side in 95. So this is season 28 coming up, and started with Fox in 94, working NFL and eventually baseball and some other sports. But grew up on Long Island, lived in Maryland, DC for 5 years, back in the city from 95 through 99, and I've been in northern New Jersey ever since.
Shout out Bergen County. So Ken, what did your dad do for work?
Well, my grandfather owned a grocery store. So my father and my uncles, Al and Steve, who also became play-by-play broadcasters, their father, my grandfather, owned a grocery store in Brooklyn, and they grew up in Brooklyn, and obviously all became play-by-play announcers. And I received a tape recorder for my birthday from my parents when I was 5 years old. And I set up my bedroom like a studio. Had the microphone, kind of looks like what Tom has in front of him now. And I had my desk and the bed in the middle and the TV on the other side. And I would call games from the age of 5, 6, all the way up until through my high school years off the television, practice, into the tape recorder. When I was old enough, I would bring it to games at MSG. And I was so lucky to be able to sit in the broadcast booth or near the broadcast booth and watch Tom play. And Dave Maloney has been my partner for going on 19 years now. And I would just, via osmosis, some of the, great broadcasters that I would spend a lot of time near and the producers, and I would just soak it all in and listen and observe how everything works and learn about the preparation. So it was so much fun. I have, hundreds of memories of attending Rangers games and Knicks games at the Garden during those years. And then I think I told you the story earlier, Tom, on a prior interview, but was really lucky in high school when a small cable station, Cox Cable of Great Neck, came to my school to film a girls' basketball game. And they had 2 cameras, a little production van, no announcers. And I volunteered. I was there covering the game for the school paper. And I announced the game. They clipped a mic onto my shirt. And then over the next 3 years, I spoke with the producer after the game, and he gave me this unbelievable opportunity in high school to call games all over Long Island: basketball, football, hockey, baseball, soccer, lacrosse. And back then, kids my age never really had the opportunity until college. Now they start a lot earlier, great programs in high school and even in middle school. But I felt like I had a 3-year head start on anybody else my age who wanted to do it, and got some great experience calling the games for Cox Cable, and moved on to NYU and did basketball there on the radio. And also by going to school in the New York area, still would go to games at the Garden, would help out handling statistics for the radio broadcast. And I also met some great people, wound up with an opportunity to fill in on some Islanders radio pre- and post-game shows, and then actually do some games my senior year in college. My first NHL game was Islanders in Winnipeg, 1989. And I was able to use that tape. Most people try and get a minor league job and then use those tapes to get an NHL job. I had a couple of NHL tapes, and that's what I used to send around, and was hired by the team in Baltimore in June of 1990.
Good story. So with your father and uncle being as successful as they were, I mean, what I've learned, you want to learn from other people that are very good at the job, but you still have to be yourself, right? Is that how you looked at it, that you were going to be Kenny Albert, not Marv Albert or Steve Albert?
I thought one of the great things about getting the job in Baltimore, I was able to sort of establish my own identity, right? You learn from everybody. You learn from my father and my uncles and so many other broadcasters that I would listen to as a kid, including Sam Rosen, who started with the Rangers in the mid 80s, and Jim Gordon and Bill Chadwick on Ranger broadcast before that, Jiggs McDonald on the Islanders, Howie Rose, Mike Emmerich on the Devils, Gary Thorne. So I would listen to everybody, radio, TV, and you take a little piece from each and every one of them. But those 2 years in Baltimore, I wouldn't trade it in for anything. It was 8-hour, 10-hour bus rides, not a lot of sleep. But I learned so much by getting those reps and doing 80 games a year for 2 years at the minor league level in Hershey, Pennsylvania, Utica, Binghamton, Portland, Maine, up in the Maritime provinces. We'd go up there, play 6 or 8 games against teams in Halifax and Sydney, Nova Scotia, and Fredericton and Moncton, New Brunswick. And, I was the same age as a lot of the players, so we all had the same goal, which was to get to the next level. And I learned so much about what goes into running a sports organization. I would also have to help out with some of the PR and marketing and sales and, go pick up this player at the airport, drive this player to an event. So it was 2 years, but I have so many great memories. And it really, like I said, helped me establish my own identity in a different market.
Well, is there, I'm putting you on the spot here a little bit. So of all the athletes that you've interviewed, is there a favorite athlete that maybe you admire?
Besides Tom Laidlaw, obviously.
I was gone by that.
The two that I always mention as far as they were just such down-to-earth, nice, regular people, Wayne Gretzky and Brett Favre. Yeah. And Tom, I know you played with Wayne, and I got to know him a little bit during the 3 years he spent with the Rangers, and a lot better over the last 2 years now that we're colleagues at TNT. And he's been in the booth with us for a couple of games. During the conference final last year and the Stanley Cup final this year, the studio show traveled. So I spent a lot of time around Wayne and Paul Bissonnette and Anson Carter and Liam McHugh and Rick Tocchet and Henrik Lundqvist. They were part of our traveling circus. So had a number of meals with Wayne and his wife Janet and the whole group. And just as I'm sure you have so many stories about him from the LA days, he might be a nicer person than he was a player. And that's kind of hard to believe. But, I would witness him just setting up meals and setting up golf outings for people and just how nice he is to the general public. Pictures, autographs, never turns anybody down. Brett Favre, we had production meetings before the football broadcast, and we meet with players and coaches, and he never gave me the impression that he didn't want to be there, that he had to go somewhere else, go to a meeting, go home. He would sit there for 45 minutes, tell stories about hunting and fishing and his family, and just a down-to-earth regular guy. Whether it's Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Tom Brady, I've had meetings with all these guys for broadcasts, and all just very nice, professional. Aaron Rodgers, I throw into that mix. They were so used to it. They would do it every week prior to the broadcast, so it became part of their routine. But hockey players in general, I think back to my early days with the Rangers, guys like Brian Leetch and Adam Graves and Mark Messier. I was telling somebody the story yesterday. They asked me about Messier and the leadership. My first year with the Rangers was 95, 96, and we had a road trip in December to Western Canada. And the team played in Vancouver. And then on the off day, we were flying to Edmonton. And there were 5 or 6 guys on the team who had played for the Oilers. Messier, Kevin Lowe, Craig McTavish, Jeff Bukaboom, Adam Graves, maybe 1 or 2 others. And they all had friends and family in Edmonton. They had dinner plans set up on the off day once we landed. So there was a mechanical issue with the flight, and it was going to be about a 4-hour delay. And the Rangers travel director knew that these guys had plans in Edmonton, set up commercial flights for the 5 or 6 of them to go ahead of the team before the charter would be ready to go. And Mark Messier stood up at the front of the plane and said, "Nope, we go as a team."
Ooh, nice.
Or none of us. And they waited, and it took about 3 or 4 hours for the plane to be fixed. And everybody went together, and that was one example of his leadership. That run to the conference final in '97 with Wayne and Mark, that was a lot of fun. And then, you fast forward to the Henrik Lundqvist era. Again, one of the nicest individuals you'll ever meet. And I think back to all the time we spent with Rod Gilbert, who was Mr. Ranger and Mr. New York, and Henrik sort of taken over that mantle as far as some of his charity endeavors, and still lives in New York, hasn't moved back to Sweden, goes back in the summer for a month or two, but he's become a native New Yorker. So just great people, as good as they were on the ice, even nicer and better people off the ice.
That's, you're proud to be in the hockey world, right? Because that's kind of the code for everybody in the business, not just the players, the trainers, the coaches. It's the same thing. It's the way you carry yourself. You're representing yourself, the team, the sport. We're talking about Wayne. One of the things that impressed me the most about him was how aware he was of how he affected other people, the game, his place in the game. Okay, so one of the things I always give you a hard time about when I see you in public or privately is there any sport that you cannot do? Like, you've done everything, right?
So I'm very fortunate, Tom. Hockey for 33 years, football, this is year 30, basketball and baseball for a long time. And I've done some other sports, boxing here and there. And I was asked to do track and field and volleyball at various Olympics. And I didn't know a lot about those sports. I went out and I bought Track and Field for Dummies. That's an actual sport. I sat down with our local volleyball coach at the high school for an hour and a half. And I said to her, fill me in on the rules, the strategy, the history, everything. And it was great. I knew so much more after that session than I did going into it. The one sport that I've done once that I was asked to do during my time working in Washington with Home Team Sports, working the Capitals games, but they also had the contract to the ACC conference. So they would do a lot of basketball and volleyball and soccer and lacrosse. And I was once asked, I was about 25 years old, and I was asked to do college wrestling. Wow. And it was the ACC tournament down in North Carolina. And I studied, I spoke to some Olympic wrestlers. If you remember Jeff Blatnick, somebody connected me with him. Spoke to him on the phone, watched some prior events on video. And once we sat down and started the telecast, I felt like I had no idea what I was watching. It just didn't click, didn't resonate with me. Luckily, I had a great color analyst who had been a wrestler at one of the schools, I think the University of North Carolina. And I looked at myself as the traffic cop. I would introduce the two wrestlers in a particular match. Okay, here's 19-year-old Tom Laidlaw. He's a junior from Westchester, New York, record of 19-0. And I'd introduce the opponent, and then I'd just get out of the way and let my partner handle it, because really felt so clueless and had no idea. So that was the one sport that I actually did work once. I also once did the public address announcing at a dog show in Baltimore. I was working in Baltimore. There were cue cards, so I didn't have to know too much about it. I was kind of fed the information. I once did I was a guest public address announcer at a robotics competition.
Oh, wow.
In New York, same thing. I was passed along cards to read. So, that wasn't too bad, but the college wrestling was the one that I really felt clueless.
Do you do a lot of VO work or much VO work?
Once in a while. I've done some voiceover work through the years. I've been asked to narrate various pieces for some different shows or events. So not frequently, but once in a while.
See, Tom had to be showing off that VO work. Like, you had to use the code word there. Like, I did.
Once in a while, they also they'll take a part of an actual telecast and maybe use it in a TV show or a movie. There was an episode of Friends, believe it or not, back in the late 90s. It was a Thanksgiving episode, and Brad Pitt was one of the guest stars. My wife and kids tell me when they see it on reruns, but they actually could hear my voice for about 5 seconds. Oh. It was from a Green Bay Detroit football game from the previous season, a Sunday game that I worked, and those teams were playing on Thanksgiving the following year, and this show, the Friends episode, was that week, so they actually took the play-by-play from that episode and used it on the show.
Oh, nice. Cool. So got the residual checks from that one or no?
And nothing came through from that one. There must have been permission given from Fox, I guess, but I do get residual checks for like $18, $22 once in a while, occasionally 1 cent. And I don't deposit them. I keep them. I keep frame them somewhere. I had a role in 2 movies, both basketball related, ironically, many years ago. One was called Game Day. It never came out in the theaters. It went right to video. Richard Lewis, the actor, comedian, actually a friend of mine. He's been on Curb Your Enthusiasm for many years, but he was a basketball coach in this movie, and I played the role of a play-by-play announcer. So then there was another one you guys might be familiar with, Joanna Man, which came out in the theaters, and it was a basketball-related movie. And I had a quick 30-second part at the beginning as a play-by-play broadcaster, but I do get some residual checks, like I said, whenever it's on cable TV or comes out elsewhere on some other medium. But once in a while, those checks are, believe it or not, for 1 cent. Sometimes they're for $12, 15, 20. I guess pay for a couple of lunches along the way.
There you go. So you've got nothing else going on. You're lots of time on your hands. I'm being sarcastic when I say this. So now you've got a book coming out that you wrote yourself. Wow, very cool.
I did. And the summer's a lot quieter. From September through May, it's absolutely crazy. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 flights a week, games in 4 different sports. But I never feel like I'm going to work. I'm real fortunate. There's a lot of travel and a lot of work involved, but I never feel like I'm actually working. The summer's been great. A lot of time at home and with the family, and a couple of weddings to attend. Went to the Football Hall of Fame for the first time this past weekend. Never been to Canton. Former partner of mine on TV, Rondé Barber, was inducted. So that was really exciting to be there for that and help celebrate with his friends and family. The book is coming out in October. Couldn't be any more excited. I feel like I always have a lot of stories when I do interviews and speak to high school and college students about a lot of the stuff we've talked about: early life, childhood, growing up, getting into broadcasting, the early years in Baltimore, and now calling the NFL and NHL for 3 decades, and the other sports as well, and 8 Olympics, and a lot of travel stories about my 200 plus analysts I've worked with, stories about the COVID era and how we did broadcast during that time, advice to high school and college students. So it's all, it's a compilation of all of those subjects in the book, and some stories that hopefully people enjoy. Official publication date is October 10th. It's called A Mic for All Seasons, MIC, and the I is a microphone. Forward.
Who did your forward?
Forwards are written by Wayne Gretzky and Walt Clyde Frazier, which was unbelievable for them to be kind enough to participate. I've worked with both of them on the broadcast side, and I did it myself. I talked to a couple of writers, thought about using a ghostwriter. I did a lot of writing back in the day in high school and college. I enjoy it, don't mind it. And the bottom line was I kind of wanted it to be in my voice, my stories.
Sure.
Instead of telling someone else the stories and having them write it and put it together. It just felt really good to do it myself. It was a long process, never knew anything about the book or publishing business, so I learned along the way, had great editors. I'd thought about it for a long time, and then during the pandemic, my family, my wife and daughters, who are now 23 and 20, so this was 3 years ago, they really pushed me. They knew about all these stories that I have, and had a lot of time in my hands. I was home for 146 straight days, but who's counting?
Wow.
March 2020, until I traveled to the Edmonton bubble for the playoffs that August.
That's right.
So I put together an outline and sample chapters, and I had been contacted by a book agent, Andrew Blounder, many years ago. Who's a big sports fan. Sent me an email, said, if you're ever thinking about doing a book, let me know. So he wound up connecting me with a publisher, Triumph Books, out of Chicago. They publish primarily sports books. And they took on the project. And probably over the last 2 years, it was due last September. But since then, it's gone through the editing process. And now it's actually getting printed. It's in publication. But in 2021 and 22, spent a lot of time on airplanes and hotel rooms. And then last summer at home, reading through it multiple times. My family was a great help. And they wanted 70,000 words. And I remember when I was stuck at about 30,000, I thought to myself, how am I ever going to do this? But the stories just kept flowing, and got it done, turned it in last September. We've gone through the editing process. And like I said, publication date, October 10th. We have a couple of events lined up. Bookends in Ridgewood, New Jersey. They do a lot of these events with authors. We'll have a book signing and Q&A there on Monday, October 9th. And we'll have an event at the NHL store, not too far from Madison Square Garden at Hudson Yards, Manhattan West. It's probably sometime in November. So looking forward to that as well. So can't wait. I'll make sure to get you guys a copy and hopefully any of the listeners and viewers. It's available now, actually, for pre-order. It's a Mike for All Seasons. You can find it on, you can Google the title of the book, but I know it's available on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Triumph Books website as well.
Very cool. That's excellent. So the big question, though, is what number chapter is about me?
Huh.
Well, it would have to be number 2, right? Your uniform.
There you go. Yeah, steady. Yeah.
So a lot about watching the Rangers back in your era. You know how close we both are with Dave Maloney, and a number of stories and anecdotes. The first season we worked together, 05-06, I think this made it into the book. The Rangers made the playoffs that year for the first time in 8 seasons, and they played the Devils in Game 1. We were in a small booth at the old Meadowlands Brendan Byrne Arena because there were so many broadcast crews. So we weren't in the usual spot. It was tight. And Dave was one of the first partners of mine that did his notes on a computer. You know, I'm old school. I do a lot by hand. But Dave was the first. He would do a lot of his rosters and information about the players. So he would have his laptop out. And this was back in 2005-06. And I always try to keep a cover on my drink in the booth while I'm doing the game because you don't want to accidentally spill it.
I was going to ask you a question about this.
You want to spill it on your papers, right? Yeah. Whether it's water, Diet Coke, coffee, whatever. I'm not a coffee person, but I always try to keep a cover on it or a cap. Dave had a water bottle, unbeknownst to me, right near the computer, and he had taken the cap off, and I accidentally spilled his water onto his keyboard.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Oh, you know how, Dave's competitiveness on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
5 seconds, I thought he was going to kill me. And we finished the broadcast, and, I was ready to buy him a new computer the next day. Fortunately, he called me the next day, and everything was okay. There was no damage. So, but stories about, Sam Rosen and Joe Micheletti, who I've traveled with now for so many years. We all sit together on the plane, on the team plane, and, the Lundqvist era, so many Game 7s and memorable playoff games, the run to the Stanley Cup final in 2014. I write about the national hockey that I've worked, calling the Stanley Cup final on TV 2 of the last 3 years now, 2021 on NBC and 2023 on TNT. So there's a chapter on each sport. So there's a hockey chapter on the baseball, basketball. There's a chapter on Madison Square Garden and growing up, going to events, and then eventually calling games now for the Rangers for 28 years and work about 15 Knicks games for the last 12 or 13 years. So hopefully you'll enjoy some of the stories that are in there.
Very cool. So go back to Dave Maloney, too. He's a total gentleman. I respect him a ton. He's a professional. We're good friends. But Dave's got himself a little bit of a temper, right? So remember when we did the Ice Hockey at Harlem dinner together? And there was a group that had golf with Dave, and they're sitting at the table. And I was trying to stir the pot, and I said, do most times. I said to him, okay, guys, did you sign a waiver to play golf with Dave Maloney? Like, did he snap? And they're, oh, no. They're like, he was sitting at the table. Oh, no, he was fine. He was fine. Dave had to leave early, and you and I were still up talking. And so I went back to the table like that. I said, now tell me the truth. Did he snap? And they go, oh, yeah. And it was scary, too. It's just.
I witnessed a couple of incidents on tennis courts throughout our time working together during some road trips to Florida. Some of us in the broadcast group and the production folks would play doubles tennis at the hotel. And we were once 10, 12 years ago in Fort Lauderdale, Marriott Harbor Beach, where a lot of the teams used to stay. And we played tennis and we borrowed rackets, and they probably weren't the greatest quality, right? The rackets at the hotel. And Dave was frustrated after a certain shot and smashed the racket, and it was all twisted and bent out of shape. And to Dave's credit, he actually used that racket for the rest of the set, and his team won. He actually was a winning team, and he was a bit sheepish when he had to hand the racket back to the folks in the hotel. But I've seen him smash or throw the tennis racket a couple of times.
He was trying to keep himself. This is years ago, 10 years ago. We're at a charity golf tournament up at one of the casinos in Connecticut, and I don't golf, so I was just goofing around or something. All of a sudden, I see Dave walking really quietly, all by himself, and he's nice and calm, and he's walking. And the tournament's still going on. It's like halfway through. I knew something had happened. Like he'd snap. He says, "Tom, I'm going home now. That's it. I'm done." And it was funny because you could tell he was trying so hard to compose himself. And I'm thinking those poor people on 95, if he gets into traffic, he's going to snap because he was, and I don't want to take the wrong picture about Dave. He's, Kenny, you worked with him so long. He's very professional, gentleman and everything. But
he's the best. And the most amazing thing to me about Dave, he's had 3 separate, distinct, tremendous careers in 3 different fields.
Yep.
He was an NHL player for 10, 12 years, captain of the Rangers when you guys went to the Cup final. So over a decade as a pro athlete at a high level. Then he worked on Wall Street for about 20 years at Bear Stearns and a couple of other companies, and dabbled in some TV and radio during that time. And now for going on 19 years, a full-time career as a broadcaster with the Rangers on the radio TV side. So, you won't find too many people that have 3 long, distinct, very successful careers, really in 3 totally different industries.
Well, I should correct you though, Kenny. I think it's actually 4. He also worked at the liquor store here in Greenwich, Connecticut.
There you go. Right.
So,
for a period of time.
Yeah.
Where
Kenny, still Dave's busy. Dave's been very successful, but he was just bored during the pandemic, so he went in and helped out his.
That's awesome.
It wasn't about money. I think he just wanted something to do. He helped out his.
Just wanted to keep busy, and he's a people person. He wanted to be around people during the pandemic. He also reads. I mean, he knows more about U.S. history than the 3 of us combined. He's such a vociferous reader for on the road. He's always got a 500-page novel with him. So, you can add that to his resume as well.
Right. I'm going to put you on the spot again here. Can you say there's one person that influenced you most in your career?
I mean, as far as my broadcasting career, obviously I'd have to say my father as far as the early years, just learning, both via osmosis and by watching him. The preparation was the number one thing that I learned. He was always preparing for the next event. And I would see that at home, in hotels, when I would go on road trips. If you remember, Tom, when you were playing, he was doing the 6 and 11 o'clock sports on the news on Channel 4.
That's right.
And was also doing the games in between. So he would be at the WNBC studio and then go to the Garden and then go back to do the 11 o'clock sports. So, I learned from him the work ethic, the preparation, etc. But aside from that, having been in the business for so long now, I've learned from so many people, broadcast partners, producers, executives at the various networks. So it's probably hard to pinpoint one person, but you learn from just about everybody you're around.
Ken, let me ask this, because we've had a couple of players on who've had famous fathers. Mark Howe, we've had Eric Nystrom on. How was your dad with you regarding your craft? Did he give you a lot of advice? Was he hands off? How did he help you with that?
Well, first of all, it's funny you mentioned Eric Nystrom. Among the first games I did for the Islanders, I mentioned back in 89, 90, 91, Bob Nystrom was my color analyst. He was doing the radio for the Islanders. I worked 8 or 10 games with Bobby. Great guy. And I remember Eric was like 6 or 7 years old sitting behind us in the broadcast booth and went on to have a long career in the NHL as well. But as far as the question, he was totally hands off. I mean, he knew I was very interested, and I would announce the games in the tape recorder, etc. And then I did stats for him at Rangers, Knicks, NFL games. So I was absorbing, I was learning the craft, but I was probably pretty quiet about it. I didn't really express verbally necessarily that this is what I wanted to do for a living. I'm sure he knew just by watching me and observing. And then in high school and college, I did the broadcasts as we talked about earlier, but it was more what I learned by watching him and observing. It's not like we sat down and had these lessons or long talks about the fundamentals. I think I probably learned more by watching and observing. But when I did start professionally, he would listen to the tapes during the minor league days and then my early days. And even now, he'll watch a game that I do and might call up with a suggestion. We just had a conversation last week where there was just a minor thing. And, I've worked probably over 3,000 games now professionally through the years, but he's retired. He's doing the same 4 things he's always done, even when he worked, but doing a lot more of it. A lot of reading, watching TV shows, watching movies, and watching sporting events. So he doesn't miss much. He watches everything, and 82 years old, but still calls with some helpful hints once in a while.
No, that's pretty cool. So you had the incident where you spilled the water on Dave Maloney's computer. Is there another incident or incidents that happened over time? Either you said the wrong thing or did something that you look back and, oh, yeah, I can't believe I did that.
Well, one story that I tell in the book, and it involves Barry Trotz. I was taping an interview with him for our pregame show, and he actually said something that came out funny. He flubbed a couple of words. I don't remember exactly what it was. And it was on tape, so I wasn't going to use it on the air. We redid it. But the mistake I made was I went and played it after the game for a couple of the players. So I got back to him that I had played whatever it was that he said for these guys. And he said, I'm going to get you back. Don't worry. And, playfully, obviously.
Yeah.
But 4 months later, we're flying to Sydney, Nova Scotia for a road trip. And we had been flying all day, Baltimore to Boston, Boston to Halifax, Halifax to Sydney. And they told us that our personal luggage probably wouldn't make it. These were small regional jets. All the hockey bags and the sticks, they were the priority. So we got off the plane about 4:00 in the afternoon. We'd go down the steps on the tarmac, small airport in Sydney. And this gentleman at the bottom of the steps with a clipboard. And he says, is this you? He points to my name. And he says, come with me. I thought he wanted me to identify the luggage, the missing luggage, etc. Starts asking me questions. Have you ever been arrested? Is your passport valid? Do you know anybody that's in trouble? Do you have anything illegal in your luggage? Then they bring me to a car, an official. I know I wasn't being kidnapped. It was a police car with computer equipment in front, and these two gentlemen start driving me around, and they continue to question me. Finally, they dropped me off at the team hotel. They fill me in that it was a practical joke. Set it up. Get me back. So, as far as other incidents on the air, Rangers Kings at the Forum back in the late 90s, calling the game on the radio with Sal Red Light Messina, and I started to get the hiccups during the game. And something you really can't control, right?
Yeah.
When it starts to come on. Luckily, there's something called the cough button that you can hit when you turn off your mic. But with the hiccups, it's tough. You kind of have to go hit the button as you feel it come on. So, did a 20-inning baseball game, 6.5 hours, Mets in St. Louis, 2010. Never went to the bathroom. Never left.
Wow.
Held it in for 6.5 hours. Didn't really have to go. But you also never think the game will go that long, right? You think you'll have an opportunity. You think the game will end. Could have gone. Bathroom was nearby. There's only a 2-minute break between innings for broadcasters, but would have been able to run there. So those were a couple of incidents that I talk about in the book. What didn't make it into the book because it was past the deadline, did the 4 overtime game in the playoffs this year, Florida, Carolina. Kachuk scored, Matthew Kachuk in the 4th overtime. That was a fun one. That would have been a fun one to include in the book. I kept giving the nuggets that were passed along to me. All right, now it's the 10th longest game in NHL history. Now it's the 8th longest. It's become the 6th longest. Eddie Olczyk was about to kill me. He wanted the game to end. He was, it's 1:54 in the morning by the time the game ended. The next day, we all woke up. We felt like we were, that we played in the game. But such a memorable game to be a part of. So,
Kenny, what's on the flip side? What's your favorite call of your career? You have one?
So there's not one that stands out above the others because I have to go by each sport. In hockey, I was fortunate enough to call the 94 Stanley Cup final on NHL radio, the national radio broadcast. So calling the Rangers winning the Cup in 94 is right at the top of the list. I've worked hockey at 6 Winter Olympics, so I've done a bunch of gold medal games on the men's and women's side. The one that stands out is the women's gold medal game in Pyeongchang in 2018 when the U.S. beat Canada in a shootout. Calling the Cup final both this year and 2 years ago on the TV side. Baseball, the one that I get asked about the most is the Jose Bautista home run and bat flip for the Blue Jays in the playoffs.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
Well, 15. I was on the call for that one. In football, there have been so many memorable moments, games. The Giants-Jets game in 2011, Eli Manning to Victor Cruz, 99-yard touchdown. I had the call for that one. I had the crazy ending this year, Las Vegas, New England. If you guys recall, with the laterals at the beginning of the game, and then it's intercepted by Chandler of Las Vegas, and he takes it in for a touchdown. So in the book, I go over a lot of these favorite games, favorite moments, but those are just several.
Kenny Moose and Goose. I loved you guys together.
Yeah, that was the best. we unfortunately lost Tony Siragusa last year, and
I didn't realize that.
yeah, Tony passed away in June of 22, but worked 8 years with Moose and Goose, Darryl Johnston and Tony Siragusa. And when I think back to the 29 years, great years at Fox, but those 8 really stand out. Just the fun we had, great games to call, but also off the field, out of the booth. And I talk about this in the book. There's a list of 6 to 8 things that we did as a group on a Saturday morning in various cities when we had some free time. Goose could never sit still. He always had to be on the move, doing something, taking part in some activity. So whether it was going on a swamp tour in Louisiana, petting baby alligators, being driven in a race car 130, 140 miles, 3 laps around the track, which I did in the passenger seat in Charlotte. The only time I've ever held a gun and shot a gun at targets in Dallas. Getting soaked in Niagara Falls on the
ball there.
boat tour. All that was with Moose and Goose because Goose just wanted to have fun and live life to its fullest. And there are probably 3 or 4 other things that we did as well. But Goose and I once, with a camera crew at SeaWorld in San Diego, we sat right up against Shamu. Shamu from head to toe. So 3 years. Great games, great memories off the field as well.
Good guys. All right, the book one more time. Mike for All Seasons is the title of the book.
Mike, MIC for All Seasons. Triumph Books is the publisher. If you Google it, easy to find. I'm also easy to find on Twitter, Instagram. So I put out a photo of the cover on the bottom. Forwards by Wayne Gretzky and Walt Clyde Frazier. Coming out October 10th. Available for pre-order. I think it's $28. So hopefully it's worth worth the price of admission once you read it.
Right. You might have to look a little hard for my chapter, but it's in there someplace. It's a small one.
When you look at number 2, I was thinking of you when I wrote chapter 2.
All right, great job, Kenny. Thank you very much for coming on the show. And I really do meant what we said at the start of the show. Tom and I talked about a lot. You and Sam Rosen are totally in the same category, both as professionals and as people too. So again, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Sam's one of the best of all time, a Hall of Famer. I've enjoyed his friendship and traveling through the years with the Rangers. You guys are great. Tom, really enjoyed, obviously, watching you play and spending a lot of time together in recent years at various events, whether it's Hockey Harlem or Rangers, MSG events, golf tournaments, Madison Square Garden. So actually, one of my favorite things during the pandemic was tuning in every week to the Facebook Live when you have on Dave and Ron Duguay and various other teammates and Ron Greshner and all the joking around with Larry Melnick. It kept a lot of us sane and busy during the pandemic, knowing that we can at least spend an hour or an hour and a half every week listening to you guys tell stories.
Again, Kenny came out with us too, and Kenny comes on first. He says, "Long time, first time." And I just didn't expect it. It was like, it was pretty funny too. It was good. No, we had a really good time. That helped us too. We had a lot of laughs. So a lot of good stuff.
Kenny, where's the chair that you wanted? Were you able to get it home?
I did. So I bid. I was the winning bidder on a hockey stick chair from the Hockey Harlem event last week.
Those are cool.
Wasn't sure if my wife would be thrilled about it. Being prominently displayed in the living room or dining room. Although she once bought me a hockey stick trunk, which I have here in the home office, but we found a great spot for it in the basement. I have some other hockey and Rangers and sports memorabilia down in the basement. So we found a good spot for the chair.
There you go, Ken. You're a good man. You're a great man, actually, too. Thank you very much for coming on the show again.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Well, as advertised, Tom, Kenny Albert, great guy, good dude, good stories. NYU guy, of course, so obviously superior.
Here we go. Yeah, he and Sam are the same way. Sam Rosen, right? You asked him a question, and we were just joking around. It's almost like he feels, hey, stop talking. He just go on forever.
They're pros. They're paid to talk.
Yeah,
and to engage.
So good, like smooth to tell the stories. And we talk about a lot of the show, and I don't want. He and Sam are so much the same. Very professional, gentlemen.
Good people. Like you mentioned, you walk up to them at the arena, at the Garden, they'll say hello, they'll take a picture. They're just very kind people. And you forget that he's done so many things: baseball, football, basketball, college wrestling.
Good at all of them too. That's the thing. Like, how do you remember all the names, the rules? He gets into it at the show, talking about how he studies so much. But
what's amazing too, Tom, is that we've had these guys on, and I mentioned on the show how we had Mark Howe and Eric Neisser with these famous fathers who were hands off. Yeah. And maybe that's the formula, because Kenny said his dad was the same thing, same way. Yeah,
because I think, and Kenny will talk about it again on the show, it was his passion, his dream, like he didn't have to be pushed. And I think, to me, that's great parenting. I was very fortunate with that too with my parents. They're busy farming. If I wanted to play in the National Hockey League, that was going to be my to do it.
And then we go way back to one of our earlier episodes where we had Jim Kite. He said, you can't be snowplow parents. You have to just let the kids, shovel the snow, walk through the tough times.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. No, that was cool when he said that, right? Like, they mean snowplow parents, like they're pushing all the bad things out of the way.
Right.
And you learn the most from the bad things.
Absolutely.
It's easy to go through good times, but going through bad times and learning from that is the important part.
So that was a great show. His book's coming out. People can look for that.
Yeah.
And
a mic for all seasons.
A mic for all seasons.
So MIC, the I is the microphone. Very cool. And I like the fact that he did it himself too, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, I think like we're getting my book done, and I guess he's got that creativity, right? We're getting ready himself.
No, he just wrote a story, and his story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people will enjoy that.
Maybe I don't need you.
No, you probably don't. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck on that. It'd be like a short book, really, like a
great show.
Polls versus great show, everybody. Make it magically. All right, Grasshoppers. Thank you for listening. We had a fantastic show. We'll see you next time.
Schwab Trading is now powered by Ameritrade to give you a new, elevated trading experience tailor-made for trader minds. Go deeper with Thinkorswim, the powerful, award-winning trading platforms now at Schwab. Unlock support from the Trade Desk, our team of passionate traders who live and breathe trading like you do. And sharpen your skills with an expanding library of online education crafted just for traders. All designed to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.